What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR, Bitcoin, a couple indicators, and some different charts. So as you can see here on the weekly, we got the close that we were talking about. We were saying ideally we wanted to get a close above this region or above this area this week, and that's exactly what we did. The reason we said this region here, when you zoom in on a lower time frame, you can see we had a minor level of resistance along with this golden zone. This golden zone is pushing price towards to the downside, which we'll go over in a second. And when you take a look here, you can see that this was a key level of resistance right here, and we closed back above that, which is a very, very good sign. So now that we have a close here on the weekly, if we were to actually put that line back up here, we could potentially see something where we retest this level as a level of support, push up, maybe we find some rejection, but hopefully we catch enough momentum to break through, and then we can retest off of this level and push up higher. It seems like we did pretty much get that bounce off the bottom of the channel. We didn't quite touch it here, but we made it pretty much almost there, and we had this key level of support. So it was kind of confluenced together with the level of support with this upward sloping trend line and the bottom of the channel. And this move does kind of look like a combination between this move here and this right here. So the reason I say it looks like this as well as this is because we have this pull to the fib here. You can see this is a key level of support right here, the 0.5 of the 618. It's a golden zone. So that in confluence with this upward sloping trend line allowed price to continue up higher. And here we had the same thing, but we didn't retrace as far down. So we almost made it to the 382, found this key level of support along with this trend line pushing upward. So that was enough to allow price to continue pushing up further instead of falling through or pulling all the way down to the 0.5 to the 618. And now we are also getting similar price action here where we have this downward sloping trend line and we're actually breaking out of the move. We're starting to see that here. So this is a good sign. We do have a confirmed breakout. It's looking very, very nice. We closed above this last wick here. So we are almost at, in my eyes, the most important level, which is this level here. I think this one's more important than this level here because we found more levels of resistance as we touched this level multiple times. We've got rejected. And we came close here and got rejected as well. So this move is looking pretty good right now. The only issue we're seeing right now is a lack of volume. We really aren't seeing major volume like we saw on these moves here. You can see these candles are much larger. The swings were just very, very large from, you can see just in a 2-week span, you can see that we went from this, we dropped 43% in a week. And then we ended up recovering from that bottom 48% in the next 2 weeks. So the volatility was a lot larger. As you can see, this move it's just not bringing that kind of volatility right now. You can see 3 weeks of a breakout and we have 21%. And when you compare this move right here, you can see that we actually pushed up 48% in this 3-week span versus this 21% move here in this 3-week span. Although Bitcoin is breaking out, we aren't seeing the levels that we were anticipating. The model continues to deviate even further out. We were doing models of 15%. So we were saying anywhere on this line deviating 15% above and 15% below to kind of get a solid range. But as you can see here on the ballistic model, we've actually deviated very, very far. We're all the way down to 26% right now. I think we did hit like 27 or 28% as well. So that's a further deviation than I anticipated. And when we look at MSTR's number, the MNAV is showing 191, but it does feel like we're not moving at that kind of a multiple at the moment. Hopefully we can start to catch some steam and momentum, but this is a good week overall though. And it's looking promising right now. So we are pushing towards that key level, which I said is around 450. I think if we can close above there, get a push up, retest, it's going to open up the idea of making it up to this wick and eventually to the middle of this channel if we catch the momentum and if Bitcoin allows us to get to that point with a solid breakout. Bitcoin has been looking pretty good. We're sitting at 117,330 at the moment. So we'll see where it takes us. When we look at the weekly SMAs, it is pushing up pretty solid. We'll see if we actually end up coming back into contact with this or if MSTR decides to continue ripping higher. On the daily, you can see that we are about to get the cross here on the 20 crossing the 50. The 50 is the yellow and red. The 20 is the blue and white. So if we can get that cross, that'll be extremely bullish. Now remember, moving averages are lagging indicators. So this is showing moves that have already previously happened. But as you can see, when we did get a 20 crossing above the yellow here, which is the 50, so the 20 crossing the 50, at this point, you can see that we ended up pushing up pretty well from that point on. From that next wick, you can see we pushed up around 43%. So for instance, if we got the cross here, and then we'll just say from here so we don't overshoot, but let's say we got another 43% move, that would take us to 570 bucks. So that'd be pretty bullish right there. We'd love to see that. That would be inching closer to that midline, which is where we think we could find a key level of resistance. Once we approach that area, you can see that here. We have had this acting as support and resistance time and time again. So I do think once we push up there, we should find at least some kind of temporary resistance before chopping and then eventually breaking through it. Global liquidity remains, elevated. It is taking a temporary pullback, but that's also part of the trend that it's been doing for the entire time. It pushes up, has a minor pullback, continues pushing, has pullbacks. It's just like any other stock almost when you're looking at the way the price action works right now. So global liquidity, of course, as this ramps up, that's more money flowing through the global economy, which will flow into Bitcoin and risk on assets. So this is a great indicator. This is a good thing to look at, but this is just the general direction. I wouldn't use this to actually call prices per se, but just the general idea that Bitcoin's move could extend out further because global liquidity continues to push up higher. On the weekly RSI, it looks like we're actually having an inverse head and shoulders. If you can take a look here, you can kind of see that. You have the left shoulder there, you have your right shoulder, and you have your head. And that usually is a very, very bullish sign. So let's see if that can actually continue ramping up to the upside, and then we get a nice overbought move here on MSTR and Bitcoin. Of course, they both move together. If this plays out, then maybe we can see a nice green shaded area like we saw here. And these moves lasted pretty long, from February 20th to about March 1st. And this one was around October 28th to around, mid-December, early December. So that would be nice to see. If we could go, maybe from July 14th out to August 18th or the end of August or something, that would be amazing, of course. We do have to take into consideration Bitcoin seasonality. We are still thinking that we could get a right translated cycle if the economy holds up pretty well. So depending on what the Fed's doing, interest rates, how unemployment behaves, how inflation behaves, if we get a right translated cycle and everything goes well, then potentially I could see us pushing up, trending sideways, and then getting one final leg for the blow off top. If we do get a left translated cycle and things go bad, where the unemployment rate spikes, unexpectedly or higher than anticipated, it spooks the market. That could kind of trigger some kind of downturn where people get worried. Also, if the Fed does cut, even though cuts are bullish, it could spook the markets because some people might be like, oh, well, why is the Fed cutting? There must be something underlying that we're not seeing. So always remember that. Although it's bullish, it could spook people initially, and then it could end up being bullish as well. But overall, I am still bullish on MSTR and Bitcoin. I would like to see MSTR, performing slightly better in terms of like the MNAV. but I mean, it's still trending upwards, so it's always a good thing to see. Here on the daily RSI, higher highs and higher lows, nice trend established. We did deviate temporarily, but overall, the trend remains very bullish, and we're almost making it to the overbought territory. We're at 66.15, and eventually we should make it to that 70 region for a nice extended move to show sustainable strength behind price. And on the weekly MACD, we already got our green flip. This is looking pretty bullish. And here on the daily, this is looking very, very nice. Momentum is kicking up a little bit higher and higher. So hopefully we can start to see some nice aggressive candles to the upside like we saw previously. But this is a good start right now. And I hope we can start to see some very, very large candles for that momentum and, hype around MSTR. Over to Bitcoin. It looks like the level that we've been talking about for an extended period at this point. It's been, I don't even know, over maybe a month. I don't even remember how long we've been talking about it. But we were saying this is going to be a key level of resistance, as we found support and resistance previously off of this trend line. We found actually resistance, not really support. So you can see we had 1 touch, 2, 3, 4, and then we had 5, 6. And now we're coming into contact again. So as you can see today, we kind of slowed down a little bit. We still have 2 days. So the best case scenario would be closing above this line, retesting, and then pushing up higher. That's the best case scenario. That's what we want to see. But we have to keep this in mind that we could reject off of this level, because it's a key level that you can see we've consistently been rejected off of. So we have to be aware of that, and that's what we were talking about. And our next level will be this midline that has also been acting as support and resistance along the way. When you push that all the way through there, you can kind of see that it's been acting as support and resistance along the way. Resistance, support, fell through, resistance, resistance. So that's going to be our next level after we break that. And then from there, it's going to be full price discovery, and we'll find out where we go from there. And then that takes me to my next point, which I've already said before, which is what we have going on currently. So right here, as you can see, the reason I have this green, red, and now I have green, red, green, is because I'm comparing these two moves, and this is being split by this line here, this vertical line. So I'm splitting these moves into two, and I'm pretty much calling them the same move, but on different time frames. So this is a shorter version of this move. This is an elongated version of this. So like I said, we moved from the bottom of the channel to the top, back to the bottom, mid, and then to the bottom. So top, bottom, mid, bottom. When we went to the top, bottom, we're currently at the mid level. So are we going to find rejection off of this level that we just talked about and then go to the bottom? Is this, will the top be lower than we anticipated? I don't know. Like maybe we trend sideways and then maybe we scrape this level here. Maybe we reject off of this level here. If it pushes out to November, early Q1 of 2026, and then we see the bottom, and then the next cycle, maybe we end up making it to the top of the channel. I don't know. It's just a theory that I kind of came up with, and potentially it could look something like that. So that's how I'm kind of seeing this right now. So I'm not saying that this is a top, because we could, blow past that, go to 200K, but you have to keep both possibilities in the back of your mind. You have to keep this scenario in your head, and I'm going to give you the more bullish one. So now the more bullish scenario is going to be talking about the tops here. So every 4 years, just like the cycles, 2017 was the last year of the cycle, 21 was the last year of the cycle, 25 is the last year of this cycle. And that's where we found the tops that lined up with the top of this channel. So if that were the case, then you're talking about Bitcoin touching 380, maybe 400K, who knows? It all depends on when it happens. So the later it happens, the higher that's going to be on the top of this channel. And then on the flip side, the bear markets were 18, 22, and what could potentially be 26, which that's every single time we touch the bottom of this channel. So that could also be the scenario where maybe this year we end up pushing all the way up. 26, we make it all the way down, and then we rinse and repeat. So you guys let me know what you think is more likely, the first one where we stop here at the midline and the cycle is over, and then we reach the top in the following cycle, or if you think reaching the top here in this cycle is the more likely scenario. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section. Also, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing on these videos. I appreciate all your support. But anyways, back to the short-term price action. We're currently looking pretty good. We did close almost outside of this upward sloping trend line, which is a good sign. Hopefully, we get a wick fill. A wick fill is pretty much where this following candle, the current candle that we're on right now, would push up and fill this wick right here. That's why it's called a wick fill. So this would be a green candle right here, pushing up at least to 118,900 and hopefully beyond. And that would fill this wick, and that'd be a very bullish sign. But we'll see. Maybe we get some kind of rejection. Like I said, this is a key level, and you can see we did get rejected off of this level. We pushed all the way to 119, and we fell all the way back down. It has been giving us a little bit of trouble, as you can see, but I don't think it's going to be as much trouble as we think. We have a lot of momentum right now, and it looks like we're kind of starting to create a nice little bull flag. We are just trending sideways, so let's see if that move measures out and ends up landing a little bit higher. That also takes me back to the point where we were talking about the bull flag would measure out to around that level. So that bull flag lands at around like 116, 117, and that's kind of where we landed. And actually, if I redraw that bull flag actually, and I pull it to this wick down here, it probably lands right on point. So you can see that that bull flag actually played out to the T perfect if you take it to this bottom wick, which we were talking about, in the previous weeks before we even started pushing back up. And then we do have the larger bull flag, which we have been talking about, because there's a bull flag inside of a bull flag. That's always how it kind of works. And we're just starting that one, so we could potentially see higher levels. So we take the bull flag from here to here, and we measure that move out to the bottom of this wick. That takes us to that 146 level, which makes sense. I mean, it kind of lines up. Maybe we still make it to this midline, we wick up, and then we push back down, which would line up with that theory that I was talking about earlier. So we'll see where things take us. On top of that, every time we've seen a breakout, you can see that we pushed around 40 to 50% until we had that next consolidation level. So 40 to 50%, and then when we take from this wick, so this sideways consolidation, we take it from this wick, we push up 40 to 50%. You can see that's the top of that wick and sideways action. So we pushed up 40 to 50%, sideways, pushed up 40 to 50%, sideways. Then from this wick, we pushed up 40 to 50%, and then we went sideways as well. And now we're actually breaking out. So if we were to measure out from the top here, I guess, I don't know if you want to take it from here, maybe from here, 40, 50%, 40 would take us to 154, 50% takes us to around 165. So those are all the possibilities that I'm kind of seeing right now. You guys let me know in the comment section what you think is the more likely scenario in terms of all of these. But right now, it is looking pretty good. We have this short-term bull flag that is starting to play out. We'll see how long we stay sideways for. But if you were to measure this one out, if this is the theoretical bottom for this sideways chop, then that puts us at around 125 for this leg here. Overall, very bullish on Bitcoin. I still think we have higher to go. A lot of our indicators are not pointing into the direction of saying that we are done with the cycle, and that takes us to the RSI touching overbought territory. So we're overbought, but we're not at the region of 90. So usually our peaks are at around 90. As you can see, you can put this white line here so you can see that at around 90 roughly, and you can see that's where we got our top We'll line that up. You can see that top right here, this red dot lines right up with that area above 90 on the monthly RSI for Bitcoin. And then you had the same thing here for the 17 cycle. So you can see that top was over here. So we're not even close. I mean, look how far. We're only sitting at 73. So to say that the top is in is actually kind of crazy. You'd probably need some kind of a black swan event or something like that. But at the same time, we do have to take into consideration that, remember, everything's kind of like diminishing with Bitcoin. So what we could be seeing is something along these lines here, where, because remember, Bitcoin has diminishing returns. So I wouldn't be surprised if the RSI doesn't push up to 90, but we end up pushing up to maybe this trend line here, and we find our top at maybe 84 or 85, and then we come back down because it's starting this trend downward. And of course, every single cycle, as Bitcoin starts to stabilize and more institutions start piling in, and MSTR continues to accumulate Bitcoin, and all these Bitcoin treasury companies continue to accumulate, the states continue to build their reserves, and the US, all of this accumulation of Bitcoin, it'll start to stabilize, and RSI won't push as high because the market cap is getting larger and larger. So it takes more capital for that to actually move, which makes sense. So this will just continue to decrease. So this does kind of make sense. I don't know if we're going to touch 90. It could happen, but my idea is probably that we would land somewhere around this area, around 85 or something like that. Another thing we haven't seen is Coinbase trending at the top of the apps. So when you take a look here, December 2017, when you look here, December 2017, you can see Coinbase was number 2 on the App Store. Oh, and number 1 actually. So when you see that, that's your sign that we could be overextended, because that means everybody's buying crypto. Here, April 2021, you can also see April 2021. Yeah, we were at number 2 for the ranking on the App Store. So it does happen time and time again. So this is nothing new. We've seen it before, and we saw it actually in the beginning of 2021 as well, where we got up there, and we actually saw it in November when we started to ramp up pretty high. We made it to around 18. So once that starts ramping upward, that's another sign. The list goes on. We have multiple things that we're going to be looking at. Bitcoin dominance going underneath 45%. Extreme greed going to 90 to 100%. Remember, when Bitcoin gets very euphoric, this thing can sit in extreme greed for a couple months, which is insane. It can do that. So you'll think, oh, it's an extreme greed, this thing has to be going down, and it'll keep going, and then that's how the FOMO happens, because you're thinking, oh, extreme greed, we're gonna get a pullback. The next thing you know, it goes up another 20,000. You're like, all right, I think I'm gonna get in now, and then it goes up another 10,000. You're like, all right, I'm gonna sell. Then it keeps going, then you buy in again, and that's when it drops. That's kind of how it works. Also, another thing too, the random people around you talking about Bitcoin. If you hear people at work that never talk about crypto and don't know anything about the stock market, they start talking about it, that should be a sign that it could be a time that you should be getting out, because typically you're not going to hear random people just talking about this. Also, Tether dominance making it to this blue line is another top indicator that we use on this channel. So every time we had a touch of this channel, we had some kind of local top temporarily on Bitcoin. So every single time we touch this blue line. So if we do make a touchdown here, then I would imagine that would be either the end of the cycle or at least some kind of temporary move. And here on Tether dominance, we've been speaking about this, saying that it looked extremely bearish, bull flag being played out, and it looks like it is playing out. Or I'm sorry, a bear flag playing out. I mean, I guess that could be the move, or you could actually extend it a little bit. And maybe you could take it down to this one here, and we'll measure that from there. And that would have been the measure target. And it looks like we hit it, and we could be going down even further. We are making it to the key levels that we've been speaking about over the past, I don't even know how many months or weeks. If we get this close here, we got 2 days left. We get a close on this weekly underneath this level. That's going to be key. That's going to be a very, very good sign that Bitcoin can continue to trend upwards. Because remember, Tether dominance is showing stable coins and risk off. So as this goes down, as Tether dominance goes downward, as it trends down, that's showing risk off to risk on. You're going from stable coins to risk on assets, Bitcoin, Ether, and so on. And vice versa. As this goes up, it's showing from risk on into stable coins, which is risk off. That's pretty much all I have for you guys. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.